Sorry, we are in the middle length of Lam Rim text. We're on page number 73, the middle length Lam Rim. Sorry for a little bit late. Remembering the differences and positive qualities of the three jewels and due to their taking refuge in them again and again. I'll explain. So again, we're on the page number 73, the last paragraph, middle length Lam Rim. As explained above, think about the differences between non-Buddhist and Buddhist, as well as between the three jewels, and think about their positive qualities. Remembering their great kindness and due to that exerting yourself at all times to make offerings to them and offering them even the first portion of your food and drink. This is 10 points. Constant offering. Second, the peculiarity that the collections are completed with little trouble. Third, the impure offerings. Fourth, the manner of respect when offering. The next, the need to exert yourself in making offerings. If you do that through the power of the roots of virtue that grow in the most excellent field, the power of your intelligence with regard to the stages of the path will increase. As long as your intelligence is very feeble, such that you do not retain the words while listening, do not understand the meaning while reflecting, and nothing arises in your mind during meditation, the quintessential instruction is to rely on the power of the field. Also, the offering is not confined by the thing offered, it is confined for your faith. As is stated in the scriptures, if you have faith, it is enough to offer mandalas, water and offerings that no one owns. Therefore, you should act accordingly even if you do not have any material things to offer. We are on the page number 75. Remembering their great compassion and due to that establishing other migrating beings in such a mode of behavior. Out of mercy, you should establish other sentient beings and taking refuge as much as you can. Whatever you do and whatever requirements you see, rely on the three jewels and to what is in agreement with them, such as making offerings to them. However, it is inappropriate to rely in every way to that which is not in agreement with them, such as bond. Consequently, you should trust the three jewels at all times. Whatever you do and whatever requirements you see, rely on the three jewels and do what is in agreement with them, such as making offerings to them. However, it is inappropriate to rely in every way on that which is not in agreement with them, such as bond. Consequently, you should trust the three jewels at all times. Aware of benefits, taking refuge 3 times a day and 3 times at night. This is 8 points. Taking refuge is the measure of being a Buddhist. Taking refuge is the basis of all vows. The karmic obscurations accumulated previously are reduced and exhausted. You accumulate was merit. You will not fall into the lower realms. You will not be harmed by human and non-human obstacles. You will attain everything you wish. You will swiftly attain Buddhahood. Although generally speaking, there appear to be many ways of positing what constitutes non-Buddhist and Buddhist, it is widely known that the elder and Chantapa distinguish them by their taking of refuge. Therefore, Buddhists should be understood to be those who have achieved the taking of refuge and not given it up. Hence, as for the measure of being a Buddhist, it is necessary to consider the three jewels to be one's teacher and so forth from the bottom of one's heart. Without that, even though you do virtuous deeds, you will not be included among Buddhists. Taking refuge is the basis of all vows. In the auto commentary to the treatise of manifest knowledge, it says, those who take refuge gain access to taking all the vows correctly. And in 70 verses on taking refuge, it also says, Upasakas take refuge in the three, that is the root of the 8 vows. The intention is that through taking refuge, the thought of passing beyond sorrow is stabilized, and that the vows spring from that. The karmic obscurations accumulated previously are reduced and exhausted. In the compendium of the trainings, it says, here in the context of showing that negativities are purified by taking refuge, the story of the pig should be presented as an illustration. For instance, a son of God who was going to be reborn as a pig through taking refuge was not born as one. It is stated that those who have taken refuge in the Buddha will not go to the lower realms. They give up their human body and have obtained that of a God. Page number 77. Not giving up the three jewels even for the sake of your life or love and guarding against this. There is no doubt that we will be separated from this body life and possession. So, is Lam Rim Chema now? Short on. Sorry for late, we're on page number 208, chapter number 13, the general characteristics of karma. At this point, master the classifications of virtue and non-virtue as well as their effects. You must then make it your practice to properly cast aside non-virtues and other virtues. So the Buddha teaches 3 kinds of sufferings: the suffering of suffering, the suffering subject to change, and the conditioning compositional suffering. Then Lord Buddha emphasized about the first, we have to understand the suffering. And the compositional suffering, it's hard to understand unless you contemplate it all well. So therefore, Lord Buddha says that it is very important to understand the suffering first. If you are able to understand the compositional suffering well, then you need to find the source or the origin of it. Then you will come to know that it is the ignorance which is opposite of not understanding the reality nature of thing. Then within the ignorant, we have 2 kinds: the one which is ignorant towards the reality nature of the things, and which is ignorant towards the cause and effect. Consequently, in order to be protected from the miserable realms at the time, as it is stated in the foreign verses, that the non-virtues have to be avoided first. This in turn is contingent upon attaining conviction about karma and its effects. So here, when we speak about the good and bad, or the positive and negative, then the happiness or the joyful experience is positive, and the suffering is considered to be negative. Then the causes which brings the joyful experiences are also kind of negative, and the causes which brings the sufferings are also kind of the causes which brings the suffering is negative and the happiness is positive. And when you engage in such kind of causes, and if that brings the happiness in others, subsequently it will also bring the same happiness in you. And if you engage in such kinds of causes and conditions by which the other peoples will suffer, that in turn will bring suffering to you also. Which is page number 210, developing the faith of conviction that is the root of all temporary happiness and certain goodness. The second part of the explanation of how to achieve happiness in the next life, developing the faith of conviction in karma and its effects, consists of reflecting on karma and its effects in general and in detail. Reflecting on karma and its effects in general, this explanation is divided into the actual way in which to reflect in general. In general, the actual way to reflect on karma and its effects entails 4 points: the certainty of karma, the magnification of karma, not experiencing the effects of action that you did not do, that the actions you have done do not perish. So, if a cool breeze comes to you, and if we have to say that it is also an effect of karma, then it is something we have to think about it. But due to the cool breeze blowing, if you find a pleasant emotion, then that is due to the effect. But the nature of blowing the cool breeze itself, if we have to refer to it as also due to the karma, then we have to think again about it. Due to the blowing of a cool breeze, it may bring a happiness to a certain person, but for the other it may not be the same. It may be an unpleasant feeling. So for a certain person, a cool breeze brings a pleasant emotion. For other, it brings a kind of sufferings. So it shows that it is even due to the karmic. All happiness in the sense of feelings of is, whether of ordinary or noble beings, including even the slightest pleasures, such as the rising of a cool breeze for being born in a hell, arises from previously accumulated virtuous karma. It is impossible for happiness to arise from non-virtuous karma. All sufferings in the sense of painful feelings, including even the slightest suffering occurring in an arahat's mind stream, arise from previously accumulated non-virtuous karma. It is impossible for suffering to arise from virtuous karma. The precious garland. The happiness and suffering do not occur in the absence of causes. So every person has to describe it from their own point of view. In generally, what do we know about, what do we understand as happiness and suffering generally for a person, but in particularly it can differ. Consequently, happiness and suffering do not occur in the absence of causes, nor do they arise from incompatible causes, such as a divine creator or a primary essence. Rather, happiness and suffering in general come from virtuous and non-virtuous karma, and the virtuous particular happinesses and sufferings arise individually, without even the slightest confusion from various particular instances of these two kinds of karma. Attaining certain knowledge of the definite or non-deceptiveness of the karma and its effects is called the correct waypoint for all the Buddhists and is praised as the foundation of all virtue. The magnification of karma. An effect of immense happiness may arise from even a small virtuous karma. An effect of immense suffering may arise from even a tiny non-virtuous karma. Hence, internal causation seems to involve a magnification that is not found in external causation. Moreover, it is said in the collection of indicative verses, like a poison that has been ingested, the commission of even a small sin creates in your lives hereafter great fear and terrible downfall. As when grain ripens into a bounty, even the creation of a small merit leads and lives hereafter to great happiness and will be immensely meaningful as well. Become certain about how great effects may arise from small actions by studying the narratives of past events presented in texts such as the Basis of Discipline, the Sutra of Wise and the Foolish, and 100 Action Sutra. For example, there are the stories from the Basis of Discipline about the herdsman Nanda and the frog bitten by his staff, the goose, the fish, the 500 tortoises, and the 500 hungry goats, the farmer, and the 500 bulls, and from the Sutra of the Wise and Foolish, the accounts of Suvarna Devata, Suvarna Vasu, and Hastipala. Furthermore, there are those who have partially lapsed in these four things: ethical discipline, rituals, livelihood, and philosophical view. That is, they have not at all lapsed in the latter, but have not completely accomplished pure forms of the former three. The Buddha said that such people will be born as Nagas. The question of the Naga kings of the ocean says, Bhagavan, in the beginning of the eons I live in the great ocean. On the page number 212. Further, it is said that during the continuation of the teaching of teacher Karakuchanda, 980 million householders and the renunciates were born as Nagas on account of their lapsed rituals, livelihood, and ethical discipline. During the continuation of the teaching of teacher Kanakumuni, there were 640 million. During the continuation of the teaching of teacher Kashyapa, there were 800 million. During the continuation of the teaching of our own teacher, 990 million have been or will be reborn as Nagas. Even since our teacher passed into Nirvana, those of the four types of followers who commit sins and those ethical discipline lapses are born as Nagas. We're in the last para. Therefore, solidify the certainty that even the subtlest of the virtuous and non-virtuous actions follow you like shadows and produce both great happiness and great suffering. Then strive to cultivate even the subtlest of virtues and to eliminate even the subtlest of sins and infractions. The collection of indicative verses, just as the shadows of the birds who dwell in the sky are more along with them, beings are followed by what right and what wrong they have done. Just as when those with few provisions set out on the road and travel in suffering, living beings who have not cultivated good karma travel to the miserable realms. Just as when those who have prepared many provisions setting out on the road and travel in happiness, living beings who have cultivated good karma travel to the happy realms. And also do not scorn even the tiniest sin, thinking that if you will do no harm, it is through the accumulation of the drops of water that a great vessel gradually fills. And further, do not think that the commission of even a tiny sin will not pursue you. Just as a large vessel is filled by falling drops of water, so too is a fool filled up with sins accumulated a little at a time. Do not think that the cultivation of even a tiny virtue will not pursue you. As Kondar Rinpoche has stated, the followers so the dry rice, normally on the grass it rises off. So even it may appear like very clever and intelligent at that time, those persons who act even though they may not be practicing the real Dharma, but even they may appear to you as very intelligent, but other ones who are real, the practitioners of Dharma, sometimes they won't appear like that. But in reality, in the ultimate happiness that they will enjoy will be different. So in page number 214, not experiencing the effects of actions that you did not do. So if this is due to the great aspiration and intent of the Lord Buddha. So it is a great intent of his. If you have not accumulated the karma that is cause for an experience of happiness or suffering, you will in no way experience the happiness or suffering that is its effect. So therefore, the great beings like Buddha, they dedicate all the virtuous acts of the three times, past, future, and present, even oneself and even others, to the benefit of the other sentient beings. And not only that, they have been practiced this for the multiple and the countless times. The actions you have done do not perish. Those who have done virtuous and non-virtuous actions create pleasant and unpleasant effects. As Ufta Dasi Dawa So means praise for the exalted one says, the Brahmin said the virtue and sin may transfer to others like giving and receiving a gift. You taught that what one has done did not perish, and that one does not meet with the effects of what one has not done. Furthermore, the king of concentration Sutra states, further, once you have committed an action, you will be experience its effects, and you will not experience the effects of what others have done. Moreover, the basis of discipline says, even in 100 eons, karma does not perish. When the circumstances and the time arrive, being surely feels the effects. When page number 216, reflecting on the distinctions among the varieties of karma. The presentation of the distinction among the varieties of karma is two parts. The principal teaching of the 10 parts of action, the determination of the effects of actions. Given that I have ascertained the causality of the happiness and suffering as explained previously, I have understood that karma increases and that I have not met with the results of action that I have not done, and that actions I have done will not perish. About what sorts of karma and effects should I initially develop certainty? What should I adopt and what should I cast aside? Reply: in general, you can conclude that there are 3 ways to engage in good and bad conduct, physically, verbally, and mentally. Although not all the virtues and non-virtues of these 3 ways are included within the 10 paths of action, still the Buddha, the Bhagavan, summarizing the key points, taught the most obvious, of course, among the virtues and non-virtues as being the 10 parts of virtues and non-virtuous actions. He taught that the extremely great foundation for our misdeed are the 10 parts of non-virtuous actions. He saw that when you give up these 10, you adopt virtuous actions, and that the most important points of these virtuous actions are also 10 in number. Therefore, he taught 10 paths of virtuous actions, the treasury of knowledge. Systematizing the most obvious among them, the Buddha said that the paths of action, virtues of non-virtues, are 10. And the exegesis of the discipline says, if you practice these 3 paths of action, guarding your speech, being restrained mentally, and not committing physical non-virtues, you will achieve the path taught by the sage. Knowing the 10 paths of non-virtuous actions and their effects, restrain you from even being motivated to commit them. Then practice the paths of action of the 10 virtues, in which your body, speech, and the mind are not at all mixed with the paths of non-virtuous action. This practice is indispensable as the basis for all 3 vehicles, as well as for the accomplishment of the 2 aims of beings. Hence, the conqueror repeatedly praised it from many perspectives. The questions of the Naga kings of the ocean states, what I have called virtues are the taproots of the perfection of all deities and humans. They are the taproots of the enlightenment of Sarvakas and the Pratikya Buddhas. They are the taproots of the unexiled, perfect enlightenment. And what are these taproots? They are the 10 virtuous actions. And also, for example, all lot of Nagas, all villages, cities, municipalities, districts, countries, and kings' palaces, all grass, bushes, medicinal herbs and trees, all fruits of labor, all stocks of seeds, the growth of all harvest, their plowing, harrowing, and production, everything rests on the earth. Their source is the earth. So before going through detail about the calming, I want to take medicine for my coughing. We're on the page number 218, the determination of the effects of action. There are 3 points to the determination of the effects of action: non-virtuous actions and their effects, virtuous actions and their effects, the presentation of other classifications of karma. These are explained in 3 parts: the actual paths of non-virtuous actions, distinctions of weight, and exposition of the effects. The 10 paths of non-virtuous actions are as follows. What is killing? The compendium of determination teaches this in 5 categories: basis, perception, attitude, affliction, and conclusion. However, you can condense the middle 3 into the category of attitude and add the category of performance to give you a condensed presentation of each of the paths of action in 4 categories: basis, attitude, performance, and culmination. Such a presentation is easy to understand, and there is no contradiction between it and the intention in Asanga's teaching. Among these, the basis of killing is a being who is alive. Moreover, the levels of yoga did as a qualification, other as in another living being. This is in consideration of cases of suicide. and when there is a scene of commission that lacks culmination. Concerning the three aspects of attitude, perception, motivation, and affliction, perception has four types. Perceiving a living being to be a living being, perceiving a living being not to be a living being, perceiving what is not a living being not to be a living being, perceiving what is not a living being to be a living being. The first and third perceptions are accurate, whereas the second and fourth are mistaken. In some cases, there may be specific motivation. For example, someone may plan to kill only someone called Devadatta, and he or she then commits murder. However, if this person mistakes Yashnadatta for Devadatta and kill him instead, there is no actual sin. Hence, such an action of killing requires an accurate perception. If at the time of performance the killer has a general motivation, thinking that no matter what happens, he or she will kill, an accurate perception is not necessary. Knowing this to be the case for any of the remaining 9 non-virtuous actions. The affliction is any of the 3 mental poisons, and the motivation is the desire to kill. As for the performance, it makes no difference between whether the performers do it themselves or cause someone else to do it. The nature of the performance is killing by way of a weapon, poison, a spell, or the like. The culmination is the death of another on account of the performance, either at that point in time or at another point in time. Further, the treasury of knowledge says, if the killer dies prior to or at the same time as the victim, there is no actual infraction, since the killer has been assumed another life. Stealing. The basis of stealing is anything owned by another. Among the 3 aspects of attitude, the perception and the affliction are same as above. The motivation is the desire to take the thing from another person, even though he or she has not given it to you. As for the performance, the performer is as before. The nature of the performance and act of stealing is either robbing by force or theft by subterfuge. They are equivalent. Further, whether people engage in deceit about debts and trust or what is not given by other deceitful means, and whether they act for the sake of their own interests or others' interests or to harm another, these are all equally considered stealing. As for the culmination, the compendium of determination says, moving it to another location. While there are many cases that are incompatible with the meaning of this passage, moving the thing from its original place to another is merely an illustration. In the cases of things such as fields, moving it is not possible, yet you must be able to proceed a culmination. Therefore, in such a case, the culmination is thinking that you have acquired. Further, if you cause another to rob or cause them to steal, it is enough that the other person has that thought. This is like the case in which someone is killed without your knowledge, but by some person whom you have sent. When the victim dies, the one who caused the murderer to kill incurs an actual sin. Third, sexual misconduct. The 4 possible bases of sexual misconduct: a person with whom you should not have intercourse, inappropriate body parts, inappropriate places, and inappropriate times. Those with whom one should not have intercourse in case of men or women with whom you should not copulate, all man and innocuous. The compendium of determination refers to the first. Those indicated in the sutra, such as your mother, and those protected by mothers are those with whom you should not have intercourse. The meaning of this is as per the scholar Ashwagosha said, those with whom you should not copulate are those held by another, those having a religious insignia, those under the protection of family or king, a prostitute who has been taken by another, and those who relate to you. These are the ones with whom you should not copulate. Those held by another are others' wives. Those who have a religious insignia are renunciate women. Those protected by a family are those who have not yet become brides, and are protected by kinsfolk, such as their father, who are protected by a father-in-law or a mother-in-law, who are protected by a god, or who in absence of this are protected even by themselves. Those protected by a king or his representative are those concerning whom a punitive law has been laid down. The line stating that sex with a prostitute for whom another is paid is sexual misconduct shows that there is no sexual misconduct in hiring a prostitute yourself. The great elder also taught this in a similar way. Man, the second in the list of those with whom you should not have intercourse, refers both to oneself and the others. Inappropriate body parts are body parts of other than vagina. The master Ashwagosha says, what are inappropriate body parts? The mouth, the anus, the corpse, thigh pressed together, and the hand in motion. This accords with what the great elder says. The inappropriate body parts are the mouth, the anus, the front or the rear orifices of a boy or a girl, and your own hand. Inappropriate places are areas such as the vicinity of gurus, for instance, a place where there is a stupa in the presence of many people, or on uneven or harsh places that are harmful to the person with whom you are having intercourse. The master Asvagosha says, in this case, inappropriate places are these are locations of sublime teaching, stupas, images, and the like, and bodhisattvas, and the vicinity of an abbot, the preceptor, and one's parents. Do not have intercourse in these inappropriate places. The great elder also taught this. Inappropriate times are when the woman is menstruating, when she is at the end of a term of pregnancy, when she is an infant who is nursing, when she is observing a one-day vow, when she has an illness which makes sexual intercourse inappropriate. Sexual intercourse is also appropriate in excess of a proper amount. A proper amount is having intercourse up to 5 times a night. The Master Asvagosha says, in that case, inappropriate times are when a woman is menstruating, pregnant, has an infant, is unwilling, is in pain or unhappy and the like, or is maintaining the 8-part one-day vow. Again, the great elder is similar to Asvagosha, with the difference is that he says the daytime is an inappropriate time, given that the 3 bases, sexual intercourse using inappropriate body parts in an inappropriate place or at an inappropriate time, become sexual misconduct, even in regard to your own wife. It is certainly the case that they become sexual misconduct in regard to others. Of the 3 aspects of the category of attitude, perception, motivation, and affliction, perception is spoken of in the Compendium of Determination and in the text on discipline. The Compendium of Determination says that the perception of this as that must be accurate. However, the Buddha says in the text on discipline that in the case of curtain transgression of unchastity, it is the same whether the perception is mistaken or accurate. The Treasury of Knowledge Auto Commentary explains that if you have approached another's wife with the perception that she is your own wife, then this does not become an actual part of non-virtuous action. Vasubandhu presents 2 systems in regard to an intercourse under the perception that another person's wife is the wife of a third person, one in which intercourse becomes a part of non-virtuous action, and one in which it does not. The affliction is any of 3 mental poisons. The motivation is the desire due to unchastity to copulate. As for the performance, the Compendium of Determination states that even in terms of causing others to commit sexual misconduct, the instigator of such an action augurs the misdeed of sexual misconduct as well. However, the Treasury of Knowledge Auto Commentary explains that such investigation is not an actual part of action. You should examine whether Asanka's explanation may mean that such instigation is fault, which is not an actual part of action. The culmination is a sexual union of 2 parts. Lying. The 8 bases of lying are that seen, that heard, that distinguished, and that cognized, as well as 4 opposites of these. Lying is when someone else, the recipient of the lie, comprehends the meaning of the lie. Of the 3 aspects of the category of attitude, perception, affliction, and motivation, perception includes misrepresenting a perception, such as what you have seen or something you have not seen, or misrepresenting what you have not seen as something you have seen. The afflictions are the 3 mental poisons. The motivation is your desire to misrepresent your perception. The performance is indicating something through speaking, through choosing not to speak, or through gesture. Further, in terms of the purpose, it is said to be same whether you speak for your own purposes or for the sake of others. In this case, it is said that even causing others to engage in the 3 types of speech, lying, divisive speech, or offensive speech, is the same as doing it yourself. Vasubandhu's Treasury of Knowledge and Auto Commentary explains that all 4 work of non-conscious constitute parts of action when you cause others to do them. The text on discipline said that you yourself must speak in order to incur full infraction. We're in page number 225. The malaise. The basis, perception, and affliction are the same in the case of offensive speech. The motivation is the desire to do such thing as strike others, thinking such thoughts as how nice it will be if they are killed or bound, or their resources will be ruined either naturally or by another person's. In between this, we have completed divisive speech, offensive speech, senseless speech. So it's stated in Shamar, Stages of Path to Enlightenment text. When we do the great peace and power practice according to the Tantra, it is possible that we may generate some malicious mind. When we do violent performance, it is possible that sometimes you may generate harmful intents or actions. But if you engage in such kinds of tantric practice with a wish to benefit others and also combined with the understanding of profound emptiness, if you have the support of these perceptions, and if you are able to visualize the deity itself as the empty of intrinsic reality, and the root and the fundamental intention has to be benefiting others. So, but the timely motivation may be another one, since it has been combined or motivated by a compassion to help others. But the timely motivation which comes during the act of doing may be different. So therefore, in order to take the anger in a positive way, the Tibetan term she dang means getting angry towards somebody from the core of your heart. But if you take the literal meaning, then it is very difficult for you to turn the anger into a means of benefiting others. And we have many monks who normally do prayers to go to the homes. So normally we say that when we do the pujas and prayers, we means of collecting virtuous things. But in reality, if your mind is filled with a malicious mind and anger and all these things, it may not become a positive act. The basic perception and afflictions are the same as in the cases of offensive speech. The motivation is the desire to do such things as strike others, thinking such thoughts as how nice it will be if they were killed or bound or their resources were ruined, either naturally or by another person. The performance is having that thought. The culmination is a determination or decision to do things such as beating. Moreover, it is incomplete. It is complete if the following 5 attitudes are present, and incomplete if they are not. The 5 are an attitude of hostility, driven by a refrain apprehension of the characteristics of the causes of the harm and the phenomena related to them. An impatient attitude by way of not being patient with those doing the harm to you. A resentful attitude based on repeated improper attention to and mindfulness of the causes of your anger. An envious attitude which thinks how nice if my enemies were beaten or killed. An attitude that is dominated by a lack of shame about your malice and obliviousness about the determination to be free of its faults. Attitudes of simple malice are as follows: to the extent that you reflect, someone has harmed me or is harming me, think about how to bring harm to whoever is doing or did the harm. All this is malice. Other examples of simple malice are the wish that someone else's relatives, resources, or virtues, etc., must deteriorate in this lifetime, and wish that someone else might go to a miserable realm in the future lifetime. Last year I met someone in Cuba who has been refugeed in America. He was really a practitioner of Christian. In Cuba, there were some terror problems with the Castro, and there were a lot of operations, so he came as a refuge and told me about his own history. He was a practitioner of Christian, and he was telling me about the God as a creator, and he has really very firm devotion to the Lord. So the one who is giving suffering to them is the Castro, and he prays that, so please bring Castro as soon as possible to heaven. They pray to the God. So is this a harmful intent or what? Because he is harming to you and they are protesting. But then if they bring, he becomes to the heaven, but he are not praying that it become harm to come to him, but that he be reborn in a heaven as soon as possible. when we normally practice with a sincere meditative absorption of compassion and emptiness, and through such qualities and in meditative way, we are able to liberate other things to the higher rebirths and to the paradise. But I find this interesting that they are praying that he be actually reborn in the heaven, not in the hell. Wrong views. The basis of wrong views are existent objects of the three aspects of the attitude. The perception is perceiving to be true the meaning of a mistaken denial of the existence of an existent object. The affliction is any of the three mental poisons. The affliction is any of the three mental poisons. The motivation is the desire to deny the existence of an existent object. The performance is the initiation of that attitude. In generally, for the wrong views, there are two types. One which looks at the view as an looking at something extra of the natural reality, and something which looks at the things depriving of its natural reality. But if you look at some existence, some things that even though it's existing, but if you consider it as not existing, it's also a kind of wrong view. Among the 10 virtues, 10 negative actions, among the 10 negative actions, the wrong views is also one of the wrong views that are explained here. The performance is the initiation of that attitude. Moreover, there are 4 types of such performance: mistaken denial of causes, effects, activities, and existent entities. Mistaken denial of causes is thinking that right or wrong behavior do not exist and so forth. Mistaken denial of effect is thinking that the fruitions of this sorts of behavior do not exist. Mistaken denial of activity is of 3 types. Mistaken denial of activities of planting and retaining seeds is thinking that there are no fathers and mothers. Mistaken denial of the activities of going and coming is thinking that there are no former and future lives. Mistaken denial of the activity of birth is thinking that living beings cannot have a spontaneous birth. The 4th type of performance of wrong view, mistaken denial of existing entities, is thinking that arahats and such do not exist. The culmination is the certainty that you have denied something. A full-fledged wrong view is associated with these 5 attitudes. An attitude of confusion due to not knowing objects of knowledge exactly, a violent attitude due to delighting in sins, an attitude that continuously operates in the wrong way because of the pondering improper teachings, an attitude that is impaired because of a mistaken denial that such things as gifts, religious offerings, burnt offerings, and right behavior do not exist. An attitude that is dominated due to these wrong views by shamelessness and obliviousness about the determination to be free of its faults. If these 5 are not present, our wrong view is not full-fledged. Although it is certainly the case that there are other wrong views, only this is called wrong view, for it is the greatest of all the wrong views, in that it is through this wrong view that you sever all your roots of virtue. Further, it is this wrong view that is conducive to your doing whatever sins you want. With respect to these 10 non-virtues, you may undertake killing, offensive speech, and malice with any of the 3 mental poisons, but you bring them to culmination through hostility. You may undertake stealing, sexual misconduct, and covetousness with any of the 3 mental poisons, but you bring them to culmination only with attachment. As for lying, divisive speech, and senseless speech, you may both undertake them and bring them to culmination with any of the 3 mental poisons. You may undertake wrong view with any of the 3 mental poisons, but you bring it to culmination only with delusion. Among these 10, intentions are actions, yet they are not paths of action. The 7 non-virtuous actions of the body and speech are not only actions but are also paths of action, because body and speech are the basis of the intended operation. The 3 mental non-virtues, covetousness and so on, are paths of action but are not actions. Distinctions of weight. Distinctions of weight are explained in 2 parts: the weights of the 10 paths of non-virtuous actions, the criteria for powerful actions. The weights of the 10 paths of non-virtuous actions, There are 5 causes that make an action weighty and exemplified by killing. They are as follows. Actions of killing that are weighty due to attitude are those done with intense form of the 3 mental poisons. Killing that is weighty due to performance includes killing with the mind, delighting in and being glad about having taken life, taking life or taking life in the future. Engaging in the actions. So it is really possible that the suffering may vary depending upon the hugeness of the body. Doing it constantly and diligently and each time killing a great deal. Killing your victim by torture, killing after frightening your victim into performing inappropriate actions, killing while your victim is weak, suffering or impoverished, and while the victim is mourning or privately reciting laments. A killing that is weighty due to the absence of an antidote is one that is done while not taking any precepts on a daily basis, while not doing any such thing as observing one-day vows on a new moon or on the 8th, 14th, 15th day of the month, while not occasionally being generous, collecting merit, speaking about the teaching, making obscenes, rising when a respected person enters your presence, pressing your palms together in respect, or having an attitude of veneration. Why not from time to time becoming ashamed, embarrassed, or having a preponderance of contrition? Why not having reached either a state of freedom from worldly attachment or clear knowledge of the teaching? Killing that is weighty due to clinging to the previous is that done in the reliance on any sort of wrong view. For example, there are those who kill out of a desire to be religious, relying on the views of those who make animal sacrifices. They think that there is no fault in slaughtering livestock because the Lord of all beings created them to be used. Killing that is weighty due to its basis is taking the life of a large animal, a human fetus, your parents, your uncle or aunt, someone such as a guru, a close friend, a learner, a bodhisattva, arahat, or a pratikya Buddha. Also, it is killing which is weighty due to its basis when you know that a Tathagata cannot be killed and you bring forth blood from a Buddha with an intention to harm. Killing that is done with the opposite of those 5 causes is a light killing. You should understand that the weight of the remaining non-virtuous action is similar to killing except for the basis which are as follows. Stealing is weighty due to its basis. If it involves taking a great deal or taking good things, or stealing after deceiving those who trust you, or stealing from the lowly, the impoverished, the renunciates, or the other Buddhist practitioners, or involves stealing what is highly valued or stealing the property of learners, arahats, pratikya Buddhas, the community or the stupas. Sexual misconduct that is weighty due to its basis is sleeping with those whom you should not have intercourse with, your mother, those who are her relatives, the wives of men who are close friends, nuns, probationary nuns or female novices. In terms of appropriate body part, sexual misconduct that is weighty due to its basis oral intercourse. In terms of improper time, it is intercourse with one observing a one-day vow, a pregnant woman at the end of term, or one who is ill. In terms of an inappropriate place, it is intercourse in the vicinity of a stupa or within the compound of the community. We are on page number 230. The levels of yogi did speaks of 6 ways in which actions are weighty: conditioning, habituation, nature, basis, fixation and incompatible factors, eradication of the unfavorable factors. The friendly letter says the 5 types of virtues and non-virtuous actions arising out of persistence, obsessions, a lack of remedy, and the principal foundations of virtue are huge among them. Strive to cultivate virtue. That is, there are 5 types because the principal foundations of the virtues are divided into foundations that have virtues, such as the 3 jewels, and foundations who provide assistance, such as your parents. A brief discussion of the criteria for powerful actions. The strength of the actions is explained in terms of 4 aspects: recipient, support, objects, and attitude. Strength in terms of recipient. There is strength in actions directed toward the 3 jewels, gurus, those who are like gurus, parents, and the like, for though you direct no intense thoughts towards them and do them only small harm or have, the ensuing misdeed and merit is great. Further, the mindfulness of excellent teaching states, even if you take something small from the Buddha, the teaching, or the community, the fault will be large. However, if you offer some similar substances that is greater than what you stole from them, you will clear away the karma of stealing from the Buddha and the teaching. However, there is no clearing away the karma of stealing from the community without experiencing the result because of the weightiness of the recipient. If you have stolen something that is means for sustenance of the community, you will fall to rebirth as a living being in a great hell. If you have stolen something that is not the means for their sustenance, you will be reborn within that region in a hell surrounding the unrelenting hell, such as the hell of great black darkness. In particular, if those who do not care about their ethical discipline, where they use materials of the community, merely a leaf, flower, or a piece of fruit, they will be reborn as a living being in the great hell. After a long time, they will be free of this hell. However, they will then be reborn in a dry and barren wilderness as animals with no hands or legs, or as blind, hungry goats without hands or legs. They will then experience suffering for many years. The Sun Ascent Sutra mentions great dangers such as this. On page number 232. Within the community, persons who are bodhisattvas are extremely powerful recipients in terms of activities that are either in virtues or non-virtues. The seal of engaging and developing the power of Faith Sutra says that it is an immeasurably great sin for someone to become angry and turn his or her back on a bodhisattva, saying, "I will not look upon this evil person." Then for someone to become angry and pull all the living beings in the 10 directions into a gloomy prison. Further, it states that if someone were to despise any bodhisattva, it will be a sin immeasurably greater than that of someone stealing all the belongings of all the living beings in Jambudeva. Again, it says that if someone were to have malice or anger or a bodhisattva, for a bodhisattva who delights in the Mahayana and speak disagreeably to such a bodhisattva, it will be a sin immeasurably greater than that of someone who demolishes or burns as many stupas as there are grains of sand in the Ganges river. Further, the seal of engaging in certain and uncertain destiny sutra speaks of someone who looks with faith upon a bodhisattva, and who, wanting to look with clear faith upon such a bodhisattva, speaks praises of him or her. This person will accumulate merit that is immeasurably greater than that of someone who lovingly gives eyes to all the living beings of the 10 directions after they all have lost their eyes, and frees such living beings from incursion, establishing them in the bliss of a universal monarch of Brahma. Again, the sutra on the magic of final peace speaks of someone who does as little as obstruct the bodhisattva's virtuous actions of giving a single closed handful of food to an animal. Such a person commits a sin immeasurably greater than someone who kills all the living beings in Jambudeva or steals all of their belongings. Therefore, take this subject very seriously. Strength in terms of support. Although even a small lump of iron sinks to the bottom of a body of water, the same substance made into a vessel, even a large one, floats on the top likewise. The Buddha said, sins committed by those who are not knowledgeable, and those who are knowledgeable are heavy and light as well. The great final Nirvana Sutra states a reason for this. Just as a fly that is stuck to the nasal mucus cannot extricate itself, so the ignorant cannot extricate themselves from even small shortcomings. Further, they cannot do virtuous actions because they are without regret. Even though they have previous virtuous actions, they defile them with sins because they hide their faults. The causes of experiencing a fruition of a non-virtue in the present lifetime are therefore transformed into causes of great suffering and become causes for experiencing a very severe hell. This is similar to the way in which a handful of salt is put in a little water, the water becomes hard to drink, or to the way in which a person who borrows a gold coin from another but cannot repay it falls deeply in debt and suffers. Further, in 5 ways, even light causes of fortunes in the present will ripen in the hell, being ignorant, having small roots of virtue, having weighty sins, not having been regretful, and perform a purification and not initially cultivating virtue. Therefore, the Buddha said that non-virtues are light for the knowledgeable who regret their former non-virtuous actions, restrain themselves from the future non-virtuous actions, do not conceal their sins, and do virtuous actions as remedies for those non-virtuous actions. However, non-virtues are weighty for those who make a pretense of being knowledgeable and do not do these actions, but belittle them and engage consciousness in a non-virtuous action. Page number 34. With the second last para. The Sutra on overcoming faulty ethical discipline. So in page number 235. The strength in terms of attitude. The Heap of Jewel Sutra mentions all of the living beings in the universe of 3 billion volt system, each making a stupa of the Buddha as large as Mount Meru, and each paying reverence to it in all directions for the 10 million eons. It says they're far greater than the merit that is merit in a bodhisattva's throwing just a single flower toward a stupa with an attitude that is imbued with a desire to attain omniscience. Understand that in the same manner, there are variations in the amount of merit you accumulated from the perspective of differences in attitude, such as focusing on superior or inferior goals or focusing on your own or others' interests. The amount varies as well from the perspective of the strength or weakness of your attitude, whether it's brief or long-lasting, and so on. With regard to wrongdoing, afflicted attitudes that are strong and long-lasting have greater strength, and among this hatred is very powerful. Engaging in the bodhisattva states, all the good behavior, generosity, offering to the Sugatas and the like, amassed for 1,000 eons, is destroyed by a single moment of hatred. Anger, moreover, towards spiritual companions, or even more to conquerors, children, is very weighty. The King of Concentration Sutra, when people have malice towards each other, learning and ethical discipline cannot protect them from this fruition. Concentration does not protect them, nor can living in solitude. Generosity does not protect them, nor does offering to the Buddhas. Engaging in the bodhisattva deeds, were you to harbor harmful thoughts towards such a conqueror child, a benefactor, you will remain in hell for eons as numerous as those thoughts, thus the sages said. Page number 236. An exposition of the effects, the fruitional effects. Each of the 10 parts of action depends upon the basis of 3 mental poisons that occur in 3 strengths, small, medium, and great. Therefore, there are 3 fruitional effects for each action in the levels of yoga deeds. It says that through each of the great forms of the 10 non-virtues, killing and so forth, you will be reborn in the hell. Through each of 10 medium forms, you will be reborn as a hungry ghost. And through each of the 10 small forms, you will be reborn as an animal. The sutra on the 10 levels, however, speaks of the effects for small and medium forms in reverse. Casually concordant effects. Even when you are reborn from the miserable realm as a human, as you still experience the effects of non-virtuous actions as follows: a short lifetime, a lack of resources, an unruly spouse, much slander, loss of friendships, hearing unpleasant words, others not listening to your words, respectively, and predominance of the attachment, hostility, and confusion. The chapter of the Truth Speaker and Sutra on the 10 levels both stated each of the non-virtuous actions have 2 effects. They say that even if you are born a human, still you will have a short lifespan and many illnesses. You will have few resources, and the resources you do have will be shared with others. Your habits will be disorderly or untrustworthy, and you will have a contentious spouse. Others will slander you a great deal, and they will deceive you. Your habits will not get along and will misbehave. You would hear unpleasant and quarrelsome speech. Your words will not be respected or understandable, and your confidence will not be unshakable. You would have great attachment and non-contentment. You would seek the unbeneficial or not seek the beneficial, and you will harm others or others will harm you. You will have bad views and will be deceitful. The former gurus assert the liking to kill and so on even once you have been born a human or casually concordant behavioral effects, and the above mentioned effects are casually concordant experiential effects. Environmental effects. From the non-virtuous actions of killing such things in the external environment as food and drink, medicine and fruits will have little strength, be ineffective, have little potency and power, or being difficult to digest will induce illness. Hence, most living beings will die without lying out their expected lifespans. So here the black karma, negative karma. So its result and all is finished here. We're to the middle Lam Rim now, page number 78. Generating the faith of conviction and karma and its effects. These are 3 points: considering karma and its effects in general, considering karma and its effects in particular. Having considered karma and its effects, how to engage in virtue and contradict non-virtue. This has 2 points. The actual way to consider karma is its effects in general. How karma is certain, the great increase of karma. You do not meet with karma you have not created. Karma you have created does not dissipate. This has 2 points. All happiness having the aspects of pleasant feeling, whether in ordinary beings or Aryas, even as little as that is which is generated in a sentient being born and held in dependence on the cool wind sprinkling up, arises from virtuous karma accumulated previously. There is no way for happiness to arise from non-virtuous karma. All suffering having the aspect of painful feeling, even as little as that which is generated in the mind of Arahat, arises from non-virtuous karma accumulated previously. There is no way for suffering to arise from virtuous karma. In Precious Garland it says, from non-virtue every suffering, like was all the lower realms, from virtue all the happy realms and happiness in all rebirths. Therefore happiness and suffering do not arise without cause, or from an encouraged cause, which such as the primal matter and Ishvara. In general, happiness and suffering arise from virtuous and non-virtuous karma, and the virtues specific of happiness and suffering also arise individually from the various specifics of the two types of karma without any inconsistency. To gain certainty with regard to actions and their effects, being certain and infallible is said to be correct way of all the Buddhists, and is praised as the foundation of all wholesome qualities. Page number 79. You do not meet with karma you have not created. If you have not accumulated karma, that will become the cause for experiencing happiness or suffering. You will never experience the happiness or suffering that is its effect. Also, those who enjoy the effects of teachers' accumulation of an incalculable collection of merits do not need to accumulate all its causes. However, they do need to accumulate one part of them. Karma you have created does not dissipate. The virtuous and non-virtuous actions that have been done issue forth pleasant and unpleasant effect. In the praise of Exalted One, it says, Brahmins say that they can transfer virtues and negativities, as though giving and taking them. You said what is done won't vanish, what is not will not be met. And then from the King of Meditative Stabilization Sutra, plus you cannot but touch your deeds. What others did you will not feel. And from the basis of scriptural transmission, karmas do not go to waste. Even in 100 years, when they find the time and prerequisites, they will bring the effects for the embodied beings. Considering the specific division, this is 2 points, indicating that there are mainly 10 parts of actions, settling actions and their effects. Thus, first generate certainty concerning the ways of actions and the effects through realizing their effects. Happiness and suffering are certain to have their individual causes. The karma increases greatly, that you do not meet with anything you have not created. And the karma does not dissipate. Now, what actions would be adopted and rejected in general? The doors for engaging in good contact and faulty contact are determined to be 3. Although not all virtues and non-virtues of the 3 doors is included in the 10 paths of action, the Bhagavan summing of the essential points have stated that more obvious or coarser virtues and non-virtues, the great foundations of misdeeds, as the 10 unwholesome paths of action. Having seen that when they are abundant, the most significant points are also included in 10. He taught them to be the 10 wholesome paths of actions. In the Treasure of Manifest Knowledge, it says, he subsumed the most obvious among them. The various virtues and non-virtues were stated as 10 paths of action. Also, in the exegesis of the discipline, it says, guarding your speech and completely restraining your mind, refraining from non-virtuous deeds with your body. Once you have purified these 3 paths of action, you will attain the path that was taught by the seer. Second, explanation of cherishing the adoption and abandonment of the 10 paths of action. Third, giving up hypocrisy. Settling actions and their effect. This is 3 points. Negative actions. Should we offer the prayer for tea blessing? This is the praise to Jamyang Chuje. You should open the cover here. In the morning, there may be bright sunshine, but now it may be cooler to open it so that the cool breeze will come. Is it convenient to open it? I think there may be a passage where you can walk up and open it. I think it's better if you open it. It's very high up in the ceiling, but and the lower is very low and a little bit darkness so that you all can sleep. Page number 81, continuing from the Midland Lam Rim. Negative actions and their effects. Actual negative paths of actions. It is 2 points, the actual paths of action, the distinction between actions and paths of actions. This is 10 points: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, divisive speech, harsh words, idle talk, covetousness, harmful intent, wrong views. First, killing. This is 4 points: basis, attitude, performance, and completion. The basis of killing is another sentient beings. Discrimination. With regard to the basis, there are discrimination of a sentient being as a sentient being, the discrimination of a sentient being as not a sentient being, the discrimination of what is not a sentient being as not a sentient being, and the discrimination of what is not a sentient being as a sentient being. The first and third discrimination are unmistaken, while the second and fourth are mistaken. That is, if you have the motivation, for instance, of intending to kill only Devadatta, but then when it comes to the performance, you mistakenly kill Yachna Datta, there is no negativity to do with actual basis. For that, an unmistaken discrimination will be necessary. However, if at the time of the performance you have the general motivation to kill whoever is at hand, an unmistaken discrimination is not necessary. You should be aware of this rule also with regard to the remaining 9 as appropriate. Motivation consists in the wish to kill. This performance has 2 points. It is the same whether you yourself perform the killing or whether you cause someone else to do it. The entity of the performance is doing it by means of a weapon, poison, mantra, or whatever it is. The completion consists in the death of the other being due to the condition of the performance at the time or at another time before you die yourself. Stilling has 4 points: basis, attitude, performance, completion. The basis of stilling is anything that someone else has obtained. As for the attitude, among the three, the discrimination and the mental afflictions are as above. The motivation consists in the wish. After you open the cover, it's much cooler now. There is sunlight on that side, but there is no sunlight at this side. I think you can open this side also. If the sunlight comes, then we can close it once again. The motivation consists in the wish to take it away from other person without it having been given. This is 2 points. As regards the performance, the performer is as explained above. As for the entity of the performance, it is the same whether you take someone by force or steal it cynically. In addition, being deceitful with respect to a debt or trust in using other fraudulent methods also constitutes stealing. Also, whether it is done for one's own or someone else's sake or to harm someone and the like, it is stealing. The completion consists in the arising of the thought that you have obtained it, or if you have caused someone else to rob or steal, it is enough for that thought to arise in him. This is like when someone kills someone else due to an order. When the latter dies, the negativity of the actual path of action befalls someone who gave the order, even if he does not know the person is dead. Sexual misconduct has 4 points. The basis of sexual misconduct has 4 points. Those who you should not have intercourse with are your mother and so forth. Women under the care of their mothers and so forth. All men, hermaphrodites and ordained women. Inappropriate body parts are those other than the entrance to the womb, such as the mouth. Inappropriate places are in the vicinities of gurus, places with stupas and the like. Inappropriate times of pregnancy, when you abide by one-day vows and so forth. This is attitude. This is 3 points. The 3 positions of scholars are: the compendium states the discrimination of that is that a non-mistaken discrimination is necessary. The Vinaya states that with regard to the defeat of impure conduct, it is the same whether the discrimination is mistaken or non-mistaken. The author commentary to the Treasury of Manifest Knowledge explains that if you approach someone else's wife, discriminating her to be yours, this will not constitute the path of action under discussion, and that there are 2 ways in which getting involved with someone else's wife, discriminating her to be the wife of yet someone else, may or may not constitute such a path. The mental affliction can be any of the 3 poisons. The motivation is a wish for intercourse in a manner that constitutes impure contact. The performance consists in enduring for the sake of that. The completion consists in the 2 coming together by the 2. Lying, this is 4 points. Basis, attitude, performance, completion. The basis of lying has 2 points. The basis of expression is the 4, that which one has seen, heard, distinguished, or become fully aware of, as well as their 4 opposites. That the object comprehends is that the other person understands the meaning. This attitude has 3 points. Discrimination consists in making something one has seen into something one has not seen and like. Mental affliction is any of 3 poisons. The motivation is the wish to express is changing the discrimination. Performance, this is 2 points. The actual performance, clearing of the doubts. The performance consists in indicating something by saying it, by making sure not to say anything, or through body language. Clearing of doubts, this is 2 points. Clearing of the doubt that depends on the purposes. More in the scripture, it says that it is the same whether you say it for your own or someone else's sake. This is 3 points. Here it is stated that with respect to lying, divisive speech and harsh words, even through your requiring someone else to perform them, these 3 will come about. In Treasury of Manifest Knowledge, the root text and its commentary, it is explained that all 4 associated with speech become paths of action through your requiring someone else to perform them. In the Vinaya, it is stated that in order to produce a complete downfall, you yourself must speak. Completion, this is 2 points, the actual completion and clearing up doubts. The actual completion is understood by other person. The author commentary to the Treasure of Manifest Knowledge explains that if it is not understood, it becomes merely idle talk. It is also the same for divisive speech and harsh words. These are 4 points. Basis. The basis of divisive speech are sentient beings who are in agreement or not or in disagreement with each other. Attitude among the three, the discrimination and afflictions are above, whereas the motivation consisting in the wish to divide sentient beings in agreement and the wish for those in a disagreement not to be reconciled. Performance consists in expressing either pleasant or unpleasant subject matter with either true or untrue words and saying them for either your own or someone else's sake. The completion consists in the divisive words that are expressed being understood. These are 4 points. Harsh words has 4 points. Basis of harsh words is a sentient being who has become the basis for the arising of a hostile attitude. The discrimination and the mental affliction are as above. The motivation is the wish to speak with harsh speech. The performance consists in speaking unpleasantly, either truthfully or falsely, about the person false associated with his lineage, body, ethics, or behavior. The completion consists in the one to whom it was said understanding the meaning. These are 4 points. Basis of idle talk is a meaningless topic. Among the three, although with regard to the discrimination, nothing has been stated other than it is discrimination of that as that. Here it is to talk having discriminated the very topic one wishes to express as that. Because in the case of idle talk, there is no need for someone to understand it. The mental affliction is any of the poisons. The mental motivation is the wish to take disconnectedly and randomly. The performance consists in setting about uttering idle talk. The completion is to finish uttering idle talk. These are 4 points. Covetousness has 4 points. Basis of covetousness is the possessions or provision of someone else. Among the three, the discrimination consists in discrimination of that basis at that. The mental affliction is any of the 3 poisons. The motivation is the wish to make it one's own. The performance consists in making an effort for the object of that thought. The completion is the thought, may this possession and so forth be mine. Harmful intent, this is 4 points. The basis, the discrimination and the mental affliction of harmful intent are the same as with harsh words. The motivation is the wish to eat someone and the like, and thought how nice it will be if this person were to be killed or bound, or if his resources were to decline by themselves or through someone else and the like. The performance consists in applying yourself to this thought. The completion consists in the decision to hit and the like. These are 4 points. Wrong views have 4 points. Basis, attitude, performance, and completion. The basis of wrong views is the object that exists. Among the three, with regard to the attitude, the discrimination consists in discriminating the object that is denied as true. The mental affliction is any of the 3 poisons. The motivation consists in the wish to deny that object. Performance, this is 2 points, the actual performance and the divisions. The performance consists in setting about applying yourself to such a thought. Denying causes consists in the view excellent contact and faulty contact do not exist. Denying effect consists in the view fully ripened effects of those who do not exist. Denying activities have 3 points. Denying the activity of planting and retaining the seed. There is no planting of a seed by a father and not retaining of a seed by the mother. Denying the activity of coming and going. There is no coming from former existence to this one and no going from this one to the future one. Page number 88. Denying the activity of being born, there is no intermediate state into which sentient beings are miraculously born. This consists in the view arahats and the light do not exist. The completion is certainty with respect to your denial. Among them, the intentions in the mind are actions but not paths of actions. The 7 actions of body and speech are actions, yet they are also paths of actions since they are also the basis of operation for the intentions. The 3 covetousness and so on are paths of action but not actions. Differences in weight, this is 2 points. The weight of the 10 paths of action, incidentally, are summarized indication of the gateways of Tsongkhapa. In actuality of the stages, 6 ways of their being weighted are stated. Strong compounding is actions motivated by the strong presence or absence of 3 poisons. Familiarity is to have resorted to virtuous and non-virtuous actions for a long time and to have familiarized you with them many times. As for their entity, in the case of 7 actions of body and speech, each preceding one is greater than the subsequent one, whereas in the case of 3 actions of mind, a subsequent one is greater than the preceding one. The basis is benefit or harm to, for instance, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and the Gurus. One-sided devotion to the discordant side consists in spending your whole life adopting non-virtuous actions with one-sided determination on even doing one single virtue. To eliminate the distorted side is to give up the side of non-virtue, to become free from attachment, and to train in virtuous actions. In a friendly letter, it also says, persistence, strong adherence, no antidote, a basis with foremost qualities, actions that spring from them. Back to the Lam Rim Chamo, the great treatise on stages of path to enlightenment. Virtuous actions and their effects, page number 238. The levels of yogi deed says that virtuous actions include the physical actions of those who reflect on the faults of killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, and have a virtuous attitude. They have also carried out the performance of correctly restraining themselves from these non-virtuous actions and have brought this restraint to culmination. It says the same can be said for the 4 vocal actions and 3 mental actions. The difference being to substitute vocal actions and mental actions for physical actions. Therefore, applied to each of the 10 actions, the 4 aspects of basis, attitude, performance, and culmination. This is illustrated in the following examples of the path of action by giving of killing. The basis of giving of killing is another living being. The attitude is seeing killing's faults and desiring to give it up. The performance is the activity of having correctly restrained yourself from the killing. The culmination is the physical action of completing the correct restraint. Understand the others in this way as well. The effects of virtuous actions. There are 3 types of effects: fruitional, causally content, and environmental. The fruitional effect is that you are born as a human, a deity of the desire realm, or a deity in one of the 2 upper realms through small, medium, and great virtuous actions, respectively. You should take the casually content and the environmental effects to be the opposite of those of the non-virtuous actions. The Sutra on the 10 levels says that those who have cultivated 10 through fear of cyclic existence without compassion but following the words of others will achieve the fruit of a sarvaka. They are those who are without the compassion or dependency on others and who wish to become Buddhas themselves. When they have practiced the 10 virtuous actions through understanding, dependent arising, they will achieve the state of a Pratigya Buddha. When those with an expensive attitude cultivate these 10 through compassion, skillful means great aspirational prayers, in no way abandoning any living beings and focusing on the extremely vast and sublime wisdom of a Buddha, they will achieve the level of a Bodhisattva and all the perfections. Through practicing these activities a great deal on all occasions, they will achieve all the qualities of a Buddha. Thus, I have explained the 2 sets of 10 paths of actions along with their effects. I have explained everything that is unclear in other texts in accordance with the intended meaning of the levels of yogic deeds and the compendium of determination. Presentation of other classification of karma. It is true the distinction between projecting and completing karma, karma whose result you will definitely or only possibly experience. When page number 240. Karma whose results you will definitely or only possibly experience. The levels of yogi deeds, karma whose result you will definitely experience is that consciously done and accumulated. Karma whose results you are certain to experience is that consciously done but not accumulated. The same text sets forth the distinction between having done karma and having accumulated karma. What is karma that you have done? An action that you have through about it that you have consciously set into motion either physically or vocally. It continues. Karma that you have accumulated is that not included among the following 10 types of actions. Actions done in dreams, those done unknowingly, those done unconsciously, those done without intensity, or not continuously, those done in error, those done forgetfully, those done without wanting to, those naturally ethically neutral, those eradicated through regret, and those eradicated with a remedy. Karma that you have accumulated is the remaining actions that once not included in these 10 types of action. Karma that you have not accumulated is just the 10 types of action indicated above. The compendium of determination presents 4 permutations between karma done and karma accumulated. Killing, that is karma, which you have done but not accumulated, is seen in the following cases: that done unknowingly, that done in a dream, that not done intentionally, that which another person forced you to do against your will, that done only once and then regretted, that much lessened upon assuming a vow to give up killing, after overcoming the desire to kill by means of a deep understanding of its faults, that whose seed you weaken before its fruition can start by means of separating from worldly attachment, and that's whose seed you have actually destroyed with the supermountain path of elimination. Killing, that is karma that you have accumulated but you have not done, is seen in the following case. You investigate and analyze for a long time in order to kill a living being, but you do not kill it. Killing, that is karma that you have done and accumulated, is seen in all the killing not included in the previous 2 permutations. Killing, that is karma that you have neither done nor accumulated, is whatever is not included in the above 3. Also understand in the same way as appropriate the non-virtuous actions from stealing through senseless speech. The 3 mental non-virtuous actions do not have the second permutation. Within the first permutation, there are no mental actions that are not intentionally done, nor are there any that you are forced by another to commit. From the viewpoint of the time at which you experience a result, there are 3 types of certainty of experiencing results of karma: experiencing it here and now, experiencing it after taking rebirth, and experiencing it at another time. Karma that you experience here and now is the effect of actions which ripen in the very lifetime in which you do the action. These are 8 such kinds of karma mentioned at the levels of yogi deeds. Non-virtuous actions, attitude of looking after your body, resources, and existence. Virtuous actions with the predominant attitude of not looking after this. In the same way, strong malice towards living beings, deep compassion and helpfulness, great animosity towards the 3 jewels, Guru and the like, an attitude of deep faith and belief in these. Non-virtuous actions with the attitude of enmity towards those who have helped you, such as parents and gurus, and an attitude of not repaying them for what they have done. Virtuous actions with a strong attitude of wishing to repay those who have helped you. Karma that you will experience after you have been reborn is the effect of actions which you will experience in the second lifetime. Karma that you will experience at other times is the effect of actions which will ripen in or after the third lifetime. The way in which many virtuous and non-virtuous karmas that exist in your mind stream ripen is as follows. Whichever karma is weightiest will ripen first. If weights are equal, whatever karma is manifest at the time of death will ripen first. If this also is same, whatever karma you have predominantly become habituated to will ripen first. If this also is the same, whatever karma you have done first will ripen earliest. As cited in the Treasury of Knowledge or the Commentary, as to the actions that give rise to cyclic existence, there are those that are weighty, those that are near, those to which you are habituated, and those you did earliest. Among these, the former will ripen first. Reflecting on karma and its effect in detail, it is certainly the case that you will acquire a good body and mind through giving up the 10 non-virtuous actions. Nonetheless, if you were to bring about a body and mind that are fully qualified, this will accelerate your cultivation of paths as nothing else would. Therefore, seek such a life. The attributes of the fruitions. There are 8 fruitions: consummate lifespan, consummate color, consummate lineage, consummate power, trustworthy words, renowned as a great power, being a male having strength. Consummate lifespan is when a virtuous protecting karma from a previous lifetime projects a long lifespan and you live for the long time that was projected. Consummate color is having an excellent body by way of its good color and shape, being pleasant to look at because you do not have incomplete sensory faculties, and being beautiful due to being well proportioned. Consummate lineage is having been born with good lineage that is esteemed and famed in the world. Consummate power is great resources and abundance of close associates such as relatives and many helpers. Trustworthy words are words that living beings will accept because you are suitable to be trusted, not to deal with others physically or vocally, and are an authoritative witnesses in all disputes. Renowned as a great power is to be honored by a great multitude of beings because of your fame and wide acclaim to your confident generosity and possession of good qualities such as perseverance. Being a male is to have a male organ. Having strength is by the power of previous karma, naturally experiencing little injury, no illness, and great enthusiasm arising from these life circumstances. Moreover, the first consummate lifespan is living in a happy realm, the second consummate color is the body, the third consummate lineage is the birth, the fourth consummate power is the resources and helpers, the fifth trustworthy words is being an authority in the world, the sixth renown as a great power is the fame about such power, the seventh being a male is having the capacity for all good qualities, the eighth strength is having power in your activities. The effects of the fortunes. There are 8 effects of the fortunes. The effects of the consummate lifespan is that you accumulated much virtuous karma for a long time in terms of working for the welfare of both yourself and others. The effects of consummate color is that merely through seeing your disciples are pleased and gather around you, they then listen to your words and want to carry out your instructions. The effect of consummate lineage is that people carry out your instructions without disregard. The effect of consummate power is that through giving you gather living beings and then mature them. The effect of trustworthy deeds is that through kind speech, purposeful behavior and being one whose aims are same as the disciples, you gather living beings and mature them. The effect of renown as a great power is that because you have helped and assisted others in all activities, they repay your kindness and listen immediately to your instructions. The effects of being a male is that you will have the capacity for all good qualities, a capacity for all skilled actions by way of aspiration to endure, and a capacity for broad wisdom. The discrimination of objects of knowledge. Moreover, you will be unafraid in assemblies and will have no reversals. All obstacles, whether accompanying all living beings, speaking to them, enjoying resources with them, or dwelling in isolation. The effect of strength is that because you are not disillusioned about either your own or others' welfare and are steady in your great enthusiasm for them, you will obtain the power of discernment and then quickly have the super knowledge. We're in page number 247, cultivating ethical behavior. How you engage in virtues and turn away from non-virtue after you have reflected on karma and its effects in general and in detail. A general explain, engaging in bodhisattva's deeds. From non-virtues comes suffering. How can I truly be free of this? It is fitting that at all times, day and night, I think only of this. And also, from the sages said that conviction is the root of all virtues, and to constantly meditate on fortunal effects is the root of this conviction. Thus, having understood the virtues and non-virtuous karma and their effects, do not leave it at just an understanding, but meditate on it over and over, because this is a very obscure subject and it is difficult to acquire certainty about it. Further, the King of Concentration Sutra says, were the moon and the stars to fall from their place, and the earth with its mountains and cities to perish, or the realms of the sky to completely transform, you still would not speak a word of untruth. Thus, have conviction in the teachings of Tathagata and then sustain your meditation on them. If you do not have uncontrived certainty about this quantity of truth in the Buddha's teaching, then you will not gain the certainty that will please the conqueror with regard to any of the teachings. Some who claim that they have acquired certain knowledge of emptiness are uncertain about karma and its effects and do not value it. This is a mistaken understanding of emptiness. For once you understand emptiness, you will see that this is the meaning of dependent arising, and it will assist you in becoming certain about karma and its effect. The same sutra says, like illusions, bubbles, mirages, and lightning, all phenomena are like the moon in water. It is not the case that living beings who die and go on to their next lives are offsprings of Manu. Yet the karma that persists does not disappear. The virtues and non-virtues give rise to their effects accordingly. This logical approach is sound, though subtle and difficult to see. It is within the scope of conqueror. Therefore, develop certain knowledge of Tibetan arisen together with the causality of the two kinds of karma and examine your physical, verbal, and mental actions all day and all night. By this means, you will put an end to miserable rebirths. However, if at the outset you will not reverse in the classification of cause and effect, understanding only a fragment of their depth and having a less attitude with your physical, verbal, and mental actions, then you are merely throwing open the door to miserable realms. Page number 249. When the former gurus in this lineage had examined their minds in that way, they said, on this occasion of training and karma and issue, when we compare our actions of body, speech, and mind to what is taught in the teaching, they will not be in conformity. In this we are deficient. Therefore, we are not at all liberated. We must see whether we are in conformity or not by comparing ourselves to the laws of karma and its effects. When we examine our mind in the light of teachings, we are wise if we sincerely recognize non-conformity or a complete lack of conformity. The collection of indicative verses, those who are childish and know themselves to be childish are wise in this regard. When we are comparing ourselves with the teaching, it can be like carrying a corpse. We are at odds with the teaching. When you hope to be the best of religious persons and reverse scholars, you are being the worst of the childish. The collection of indicative verses, those who are childish but consider themselves to be wise, they are called childish. At the very least, understand what is being said with regard to the teachings and examine yourself accordingly. Also, Buddha, who quotes this teaching as seen in the Garland of Bird Stories, asserts that you must examine your mind as it says in the Garland of Bird Stories. From the sky to earth is a long way. From the distant shore of the ocean to the closer edge is also a long way. From the mountains of the east to the mountains of the west is even longer way. But from the ordinary to the sublime teaching is longer yet than that. This verse said that a great gulf exists between us ordinary people. Page number 250. The final stanza. And also the childish who have little wisdom act as enemies to themselves. Through this, therefore, from sinful actions, the effect of which will become intense. You are good not to engage in such actions that give rise to torment, whose effects you endure one by one, weeping your face covered with tears. You are good to engage in such actions that do not give rise to torment, whose fruitions you undergo one by one happily and with a joyful mind. Because you desire happiness, you were wild and have been sinful. You will cry while experience the fruitions of such sins. And also through sins will not necessarily cut you immediately like a weapon. Rebirths taken through sinful actions will be evident in your future lives. Sinful actions will bring our lifetimes in the future, where the fruitions of these actions will be of various intensities. Just as rust emerges from iron and feeds on that very iron, so too do those who have committed actions without examination travel to the miserable realms through their own actions. Kamlungpa said to Puchungwa, our teacher Geshe Tromtempa says the only karma and its effects are of importance, but contemporary scholars do not value it as something to explain, listen to, or meditate upon. I wonder, is it the only practice that is difficult? Puchungwa replied, it is just so. So if we, as a religious practice, we are not allowed to have too many conceptual thoughts. Like if you do this, then that, so that may arrive, and such kinds of superstitions we are not allowed to have. We should always examine our mind. So if you always analyze your mind and train your mind, and nothing bad will come to you. Even if something, suffering or bad thing comes to you, you have to consider as it is a ripening of your past negative karmas. And in shortly, and if you are happy, you have to dedicate that your happiness be a source of the happiness for all the sentient beings. If you are happy, then with this happiness, may the whole entire realms of space be filled by happiness. Then if you suffer, then with that suffer be a source that all the sufferings in the three realms be extinct or come to an end. In particular, the way of purification through the four powers. Though you make great effort not to be defiled by wrongdoing, faults may arise due to such things as carelessness and preponderance of afflictions. If this happens, it is inappropriate to disregard them without caring, so you must try to apply the remedy about which the compassionate teacher spoke. Now, in regard to how to remedy any infractions, do as it is explained in the context of three vows. However, you should remedy sins through the four powers. The sutra giving the four teachings says, now, in regard to how to remedy any infractions, do as it is explained in the context of three vows. However, you should remedy sins through the four powers. The sutra giving the four teachings says, Maitreyi Bodhisattvas, the great heroes, possess these four teachings, then they will overcome any sins that they have committed and accumulated. What are the four? They are the power of eradication, the power of applying remedies, the power of turning away from faults, and the power of the foundation. You will definitely experience the result of karma that you have done and accumulated. Since the four powers can destroy this kind of karma, therefore it starts to take effect. It goes without saying that the four powers can destroy karma whose result is indefinite. The four powers are as follows. The power of eradication. The first power is a great contradiction for having done non-virtuous actions since beginningless time. In order to feel this, it is necessary to meditate on the way in which you produce the three effects of actions, fruitional and so forth. At the time of putting this into practice, do so by way of the two methods, the confession of the sins in the Sutra of Golden Light and the confession of sins by way of 35 Buddhas. The power of applying remedies. The second power is 6 sections. Dependence on the performed sutras includes such activities as receiving the oral transmission of sutras, such as the Prajnaparamita, retaining their meaning and reading them. Interest in emptiness means to comprehend the reality in which there is no self and which is luminously clear, and to have conviction that the mind is primordially pure. Dependence on recitation means to recite accordingly to the rituals the special formulas such as the 100-syllable. The Tantra requested by the Swabhu states, the flames from fire that spread in spring forests are out of control, burning of all the thiglets. Likewise, the winds of the ethical discipline can fan the fires of recitation, and the flames of great perseverance burns of sins. Just as when the sun's rays destabilize snow, it melts in unbearable brilliance, so too do the snows of sin disappear when destabilized by the sunbeams of recitation and ethical discipline. Lighting a butter lamp in a dark gloom entirely clears away the darkness. Likewise, the darkness of sins accumulated for 1,000 lifetimes is quickly dispelled by the butter lamp of recitation. Further, repeat the recitations until you see signs that you have cleared away all your sins. The formula of exhortation states that the signs of dreaming the following: omitting bad food, consuming such food as yogurt and milk, vomiting, seeing the sun and the moon, moving through the air, blazing fires, subduing water buffalo and persons in dark clothing, seeing the community of monks and nuns, seeing a tree that gives out milky substances, riding upon an elephant or a bull, climbing upon the lion throne, climbing on a mansion or a mountain, and listening to the teaching. Dependence upon images means to make images of Buddha once you have acquired faith in him. Dependence on worship means to make a variety of offerings to an image of Buddha or to a stupa. Dependence on name means to hear the recitation of and retain the names of Buddhas and great conquerors' children. These 6 types of remedies are only those that occur in Shantideva's compendium of training. There are many others. Page number 254, the last paragraph. Thus, with powerful remedies, you can completely eliminate the unfavorable factors which diminish when you possess the group of remedies. This, for example, is like the tarnish on gold, because all such things as obstructions to the sublime teaching will necessarily diminish as just explained. You will completely eliminate infractions which originate from arrogance. You should understand that the statement, any karma at all, even for 100 yen, is qualified by if you have not cultivated the growth of remedies. Where this is not the case, there will be a contradiction with reason and a contradiction with many sutras. We can also understand the Buddha's expression, karma whose effects you will definitely experience, with the qualification that you have not cultivated the growth of remedies. Understand that the Buddha's expression, the karma whose effects you will not definitely experience, refers to the effects that occur only sometimes, even though you may not have cultivated the growth of remedies. In this way, confession, restraint, and so forth weaken the capacity of the karma to bear fruit. Such karma will not bear fruit even when it comes in contact with other conditions. Likewise, it is said that anger and the production of wrong views weaken the ability of the roots of the virtue to give effects. Baba Viveka's Blaze of Reason says, wrong views and malice weakens virtue's karma. Remedies such as reputation, restraint, and confessions weaken bad karma. Whenever any of these attitudes are present, they reduce the potency of the seeds deposited by the virtuous and non-virtuous karma, even though the combination of the condition for the karma to take effect are already in place. So where would an effect come from, and what would it be like? Because there is no combination of condition for maintaining the potency of the seeds deposited by karma. The time for being maintained has changed. Because of this, there is a thorough eradication of the karma. As it has been said, moreover, by upholding the sublime teaching, you will experience in this life the effects of a sin whose consequences you are certain to experience, and furthermore, with this remedy and the karma for rebirth in the miserable realms transform into a mere headache. If karma that will otherwise result in the rebirth in a miserable realm can be weakened and have the effect of becoming merely a headache, how can this be considered a complete removal? The culminating effect of your sinful karma will be the experience of suffering in the hells. With this remedy, though you do not experience even tiny sufferings in the hells, how can this not be considered a very complete removal? Yet, how could these results of headaches and the like be examples of karma not having any effects? You have not found a remedy that destroys the seeds of the afflictions, yet you have weakened the karma with the contrary condition. Subsequently, even though other conditions do assemble, the karma does not fructify. You can see many such situations are more external and internal causes and effects. Therefore, although you strive at the accumulation of much virtuous karma, if you do not guard against causes that destroy virtuous karma such as anger, the virtuous karma will not give its effect as stated above. Hence, you must strive to guard against causes that destroy virtuous karma and make an effort to remedy non-virtuous karma. If you can totally remove even very powerful karma, how is it that the sutra says, except for the fruitings of the former karma? There is no fault with this reasoning. The Buddha spoke in this way with the following intention. When fruitions such as the blindness already exists, it is difficult to remove them with the remedy. However, it is easy to stop the effect of arising at the time of the cause, that is, when the effect has not taken place. The Blaze of Reason says, if it is the case that a sin will be completely eliminated, why did the Buddha teach, except for the fruitions of the former karma? The Buddha taught this while having in mind the case of the karma of the blindness, having one eye, being lame, crippled, dumb, deaf, and the like, where there is no ability to eliminate the effects of the karma that has already come to fruition. The intention that is in the form of a cause comes to an end when you acquire a different motivation. This is demonstrated by the cases of people such as Angulimala, Ajatasattu, Ashoka, Savaka, and those who killed their fathers. Ajatasattu and the killers of their mothers have developed other virtuous attitudes. Why then, were they reborn in unrelenting hells? Did they fail to eliminate their karma? It was thought that they were reborn in such places as the unrelenting hell in order to develop conviction in their karma and its effects. It is not the case that they fail to completely eliminate the remaining karma, like a sick ball that falls and bounds up. They were born in hell and were then freed. They were also untouched by the fairy garlands of hell and so forth. This being so, it is both proving that you can completely eradicate sins and that karma certainly has effects. It is not definite that some particular persons can eliminate Tsongkhapa, the Buddha spoke of this in the King of Concentration Sutra. King Suradatta killed Sasuspa Chandra and felt contrite about it. He built a stupa and made very extensive offering. 3 times each day he will confess his sins. He did this for 950 billion years. Even though he maintained his ethical discipline correctly in that way, upon his death he was reborn in unrelenting hell. For 10 or 20 billion years he experienced limitless sufferings, having his eyes squeezed out and so forth. Nonetheless, confession is not senseless, for if you do not confess sins, you will experience sufferings that is greater and of longer duration than if you have confessed them. Through confession and restraint, you can purify yourself of sins without any remainder. However, there is a vast difference between the purity of having never been tarnished by a fault from the beginning and the purity attained through confession of that fault. For example, Bodhisattva level says, you can redress the occurrence of a root infraction through the adopting the Bodhisattva vow. However, it will be impossible to attain the first Bodhisattva level in this lifetime. Please turn to page number 258 and 259. You must familiarize with yourself the correct view. With wrong views, even a person who acts well will have terrible fortune in all lives. Hence, using what has been explained as an illustration, you should look at the mindfulness of excellent teaching, the sutras of wise and the foolish, the 100 action sutra, the 100 bodhisattva stories that previous in the discipline, and other scriptures as to develop an intense and ensuring certainty. Take this to be a goal of crucial importance. Page number 260. The attitude of a person of a small capacity. The measure of the attitude of a person of a small capacity. Previously, you have had an uncontrived interest in this life, while your interest in future lives have merely been an understanding that follows what others say. You have generated the attitude. So, the smaller capacity people's goal is to just attain the higher rebirth. But here, the main aim is to liberate all the sentient beings from samsara. So, the high rebirths with all those sufferings, how can it be an object to be accomplished, to be attained? So the real teachings of Buddha is as what we have discussed yesterday, starting from the Four Noble Truths and from the persons of mental capacity, aspiring for the liberation from samsara. So the Dharma has to be identified as a means of attaining liberation. So the real teachings of Buddhists is the one which we categorize as meant for the persons of mental capacity. For the small capacity of the persons, just to attain a future rebirth and to avoid suffering is even existing in the non-Buddhist tenets also. Misconception. In the scripture, it says that you must turn your mind away from all the excellent things of cyclic existence. Someone could misinterpret this and think that it is improper to develop an interest in the high status, in which body resources and likes are excellent because it is within cyclic existence. There are two kinds of object of interest. Those, in order to have a good training in the three kinds of training, it is impossible to have that kind of training without having a human rebirth. So therefore it's very important to have a human rebirth to practice in the three trainings. Even persons who strive for liberation must diligently but temporarily seek excellent bodies, etc. in cyclic existence, for they will ultimately attain certain goodness through a succession of lives in higher status. Further, not everything within high status, excellent body, resources and attendant is included within cyclic existence. The most excellent body is Buddha's embodiment as form. The most excellent resources are the richness of this embodiment's realm. And most excellent attendants are this embodiment's retinue. Intending this, Maitreya says in ornament for the Mahayana Sutra, that you achieve high status as a human or deity by means of first four perfections, excellent resources in the body, and excellent retinue, high status. Again, it is said in many texts that you achieve a Buddha's embodiment as form by means of the first four perfections. Therefore, those who achieve omniscience accomplished a great amount of exceptional ethical discipline, generosity, patience, and the like for a long time. Consequently, they diligently seek the effect of this as well. Exceptional high status with his body and so forth. The achievement of the final goal, certain goodness, is spoken of in engaging in the bodhisattva deeds, relying on the boat of a human body, free yourself from the great river of suffering. As Shantideva says, you must rely on a life in a happy realm, exemplified in the verses by human body, and cross the ocean of existence. Reaching omniscience, moreover, you must pass successively through many lifetimes, consequently ethical discipline. The preventive of a body in heavy realm is the root of the path. So here completes. This concludes the explanation of training the mind in the stages of path that are shared with the persons of small capacity. So now we're back to middle length Lam Rim. We're in page number 92. Positive actions and their effects. This is 2 points. Positive actions, the effect of the positive actions. They are the actions of the body of correctly abstaining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct due to possessing a virtuous mind, having thought about their disadvantages. Recently, after the completion of Kalachakra, the many years before, I have some obstructions coming in my house. It stayed like that for many years. There was no big harm. But since last few years, sometimes I feel like little disturbance and a little bit difficult to read even. But sometimes it's fine. But after the completion of Kalachakra initiation, I feel it's much better. But this is the general, my eye organ is very good. But since last July, my right eye seems to be, since I removed the cataract last July, when I read for too long, sometimes it is a kind of little bit uncomfortable. I normally jokingly say that since my eye does not seem to be so bad, when some people, or since my eye has recovered, when some old women and men come to see me, I tell them that I can count the number of hairs on your head and also the number of wrinkles on your faces. They should therefore be related to the basis, attitude, performance, and completion as appropriate. When applied to the path of action, abandoning killing, the basis is another sentient beings. The attitude is the wish to giving of killing due to having seen its disadvantages. The performance is to put effort into completely abstaining from killing. A completion is the action or body of correct abstaining having been completed. The other parts of action should also be understood in this manner. The effects of positive actions. For among the three effects of virtuous parts of action, the fully ripened effect is to be born as a human, a Dvijaram god, or a god of two upper realms to the small, intermediate, and great virtuous actions. As for the effect in conformity with the cause and the conditioning effect, the opposites of the respective effects of non-virtuous actions apply. Indication of other classifications of actions. This is 2 points. Throwing and completing actions, what will definitely be experienced and what will not. These throwing and completing actions are 5 points. Throwing actions for rebirth in the happy realms are virtuous actions, and throwing actions for rebirth in the lower realms are non-virtuous actions. The completing ones are uncertain. However, even in the happy realms, incomplete limbs, minor body parts, or sense powers Hideous looks and a shortened lifespan, many illnesses, poverty, and so forth are caused by non-virtue. Also, perfect prosperity in animals and hungry ghosts is caused by virtue. Thus, there are four alternatives: projected by a virtuous throwing actions and completed by a virtuous completing action, projected by a virtuous throwing action and completed by a non-virtuous completing action, projected by a non-virtuous throwing action and completed by a non-virtuous throwing action, projected by a non-virtuous throwing action and completed by a virtuous throwing completing action. What will definitely be experienced and what will not? With respect to what will definitely be experienced and what will not, what will definitely be experienced is what has been done intentionally and accumulated. What will not definitely be experienced is what has not been done intentionally and has not been accumulated. The difference between what has been done and what has been accumulated is as follows. What has been done is what has been intended, or what has manifested itself through the body or speech after having been intended. What has been accumulated are actions apart from 10, such as those done in dream. What has not been accumulated are 10 types, such as those done in a dream. That which will definitely be experienced has three categories in terms of time when the effect will be experienced. I think I haven't read the backside. That which will be experienced as a visible phenomena in an action whose effect will be experienced in this life. That which will be experienced after taking rebirth is an action. So in the new century now, there is not much to discuss about social studies or a caste. So at that time, during Lord Buddha's time, the caste systems and the social class systems, it makes a difference at that time for some beneficial way. For example, it's not necessary that it has to be a male. Like for example, the Tara goddess having during the time of generating bodhicitta, she might have prayed to be reborn as a male, but she is a female now. So I think it is something we have to think about the condition at the time. Some people whom I know, they told me that they doesn't love Shantideva. The reason is that Shantideva has stated in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way, there are some stated many faults relating to a female's body. But Shantideva was explaining about some faults of the female bodies is towards practice of the bhikshus and the monks, but we have to turn it, or we have to look at it from a different perspective. Like in terms of a female, we have to the fall has to be seen from a male perspective. For example, Lord Buddha has given the bhikshu vows for the male and bhikshu ma vows for the female, so it is same right, same fundamental rights. But even that, at that time, due to the circumstances and the social situations, there are some differences. But now, with the time changes, and in the new era, the male and the female, the women and the men have the same right. So anyway, if it is something which benefits other and which brings joyful, pleasant in all, fundamentally or if possible, without having any distinction or differences between even the humans and the animals, then that will be very good. So that is something that we all have to know. Considering karma and its effects in particular, this is 2 points. Through abandoning the 10 non-virtues, you to indeed obtain a good basis. However, if you achieve a full qualified basis for accomplished omniscience, it will be quite unlike others with respect to covering ground in your meditation on the path. Therefore, you should attain that basis. This is 2 points. The fully ripened positive qualities and their functions, it has 8 points: excellent lifespans, excellent complexion, excellent extractions, excellent power, respectable words, known as being powerful. Being male, possessing strength. So page number 95, the last outline, the causes of fully ripened effects. This is 2 points. The division of the causes in 8, threefold division. The division of causes in 8, this is 8 points. To not harm any sentient being and to cultivate an attitude of non-harm. Furthermore, it says, through freeing those caught in places of slaughter, and likewise helping through giving life, through stopping the harm to animals, you will gain longevity. From a doctor's respect for the ill, from the administration of the medicine, from not harming creatures with sticks or lumps of teeth, you will be without illness, to offer light such as butter lamps and new clothing. Moreover, from the absence of anger as a basis, and offering jewelry a good physique, from lack of envy you will gain good fortune as fruit, it is explained. To overcome your pride and respect gurus and others like a servant, to give food, clothing, and so forth to those who ask for it, and to also benefit others without being asked, giving to the suffering, and those who are fields of positive qualities but lack necessities. The habit of abandoning the four non-virtues of speech, to make aspirational prayers to accomplish all kinds of positive qualities in the future, and to make offerings to the three jewels, your parents, hearers, and solitary realizers, abbots, masters, and gurus. To rejoice in the positive qualities of man, and with regard to women, to see their disadvantages being rejoicing, to oppose the inclinations of those who wish for a female body, and to liberate those whose male organs are to be cut. To carry out yours of what others cannot do at all, to help them with what they can do together with you, and to give food and drinks to others. If those 8 causes are conjoined with 3 more causes, their fully ripened effects will be outstanding. The 3 causes are: this is 2 points. In relation to oneself, a perfectly pure mind in relation to oneself is to dedicate the virtues of accomplishing those causes to unsurpassed enlightenment without hoping for a fully ripened effect, and to accomplish the causes intensely from the bottom of one's heart. A perfectly pure mind in relation to others is to give up envy, competitiveness, and scorn at the sight of the highest, intermediate, and least practitioners in agreement with the Dharma, and to rejoice. Even if you are not capable of that, to think of that as many times a day as the way to act. Page number 97. General presentation. This is 6 points. How to bring forth a mind cultivating this perpetually, day and night. In engaging in the bodhisattva contact, it says suffering springs from what is non-virtuous. How to reach certain freedom from it. It is appropriate day and night, always to think about nothing but this. And the root of everything that is virtuous is aspiration, the Buddha said. Again, the root of that is always to meditate on fully ripened effects. In accordance with this statement, you should come to understand positive and negative actions and their effects, and then meditate on them over and over again, for the karmic process is a very hidden phenomena, which is why it is extremely difficult to gain certainty about it. In this regard, the king of meditative stabilization sutra says, even if the moon and stars were to fall down, the earth were to collapse with its mountains and towns, and if the heavens' aspects were transformed, still no word you say will be untrue. You should thus develop conviction in the words of Tathagata and sustain it. Unless you have gained uncontrived certainty with regard to this, you will not gain, with regard to any dharma, the certainty that gladdens the victor. Some profess to have gained certainty with respect to emptiness, but do not have certainty with respect to actions and their effects, nor care about it. They have arrived at a mistaken understanding of emptiness, for if you understand emptiness, you see it to be the meaning of interdependence, and it becomes helpful for gaining certainty with respect to actions and their effects. From the same sutra, like an illusion, a bubble, a mirage, or lightning, all phenomena are like the moon in water. Humans, descendants of Manu, who after death pass to other worlds, do not perceive this. Actions once they are done, do not disappear, white or black, they precisely cause effects to ripen. The logical approach is good, but the subtle and hard to see is the victor's object of thought. Therefore, you should generate certainty about the two types of karma as well as causes along with their effects, and continuously day and night cut yourself from the lower realms by the means of examining your three doors, not to be proficient at first in the distinctions of cause and effect and to know a little bit, but still act carefree with regard to the three doors only opens the gate to lower realms. In Questions of the Naga Kings of the Ocean, it says, a lot of Nagas, one dharma of bodhisattvas cut right through falling back down and being born in lower realms. What is that one dharma? It is like this: the individual investigation regarding virtuous phenomena, thinking, how am I doing? Am I staying away from them or abiding in them night and day? As for how to turn away from faulty contact, having thought about it in this manner, it says in the chapter of Truthful One, O king, do not commit the act of killing, for everyday life is a great loss. Therefore, we all wish to keep it long. Even deep down, don't consider killing. Like this, you should make a habit of relying on the mind of restraint a lot without your motivation, even moving to mistakes such as the 10 non-virtues. Kablungpa said to Fujongwa, Geshe Dromdenpa taught that only actions and their effects were of vital importance. However, nowadays explaining this, listening to it and meditating on it are said to be worthless. I wonder, is this just because it is difficult to practice? And Fujongwa said, it is just so. Dromdenpa said, followers of the elder, audacity is totally inappropriate. Interdependence is subtle. Fujongwa said, in my old age, I am at last going on well. The Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish, and Sharava said, this Buddha taught that whatever errors and faults come about, they should not be blamed on an inauspicious direction or a bricklayer's work. It is simply that these actions having been done, this is produced. Specifically, how to purify non-virtues by means of the 4 powers. This is 6 points. How negativities and downfalls need to be purified by various means in accordance with the statements of the teacher Buddha. In despite your effort not to be tainted by such faulty contact, some fault occurs under the influence of non-conscientiousness or the multitude of mental afflictions. It is inappropriate to let the matter rest without giving it any consideration. It is therefore necessary to make an effort at means for redressing it taught by the compassionate teacher. More specifically, how to redress downfalls. More specifically, as regards redressing downfall, this should not be done as explained according to 3 individual types of vows. Negativities should be redressed by means of 4 powers, the power of remorse. The first power is the power of remorse, which is much regret for the non-virtuous deeds, as one has done since beginningless time. For it to arise, it is necessary to meditate on how the 3 types of effects, such as the fully ripened ones, are produced. When applying this power, you should make use of 2 confessions, the confession in the Sutra of Golden Light and the confession to the 35 Buddhas. The power of thorough application of antidotes has 6 points based on the profound sets of sutras. These antidotes is to absorb the words of the sets of sutras like the perfection of wisdom sutras, retain them, read them, and so forth. Aspiration for emptiness. This antidote is to engage in the reality that is selflessness and clear light, and to be convinced about primordial purity. Based on recitation, this is 2 points. This is the recitation of special dharanis like the 100-syllable one in accordance with the appropriate rituals. In the Tantra requested by Shahabu, it says, Shabahu, it says, just as the flames of the forest fires in spring, uncontent, burn all the underbrush, ethics wind fans fires of recitation burning evil with flames of great joyous effort. Just as the sun strikes snow with the rays of light, which overwhelmed does not withstand its brilliance, when ethics sun rays recitation strike the snow of negativities, it is exhausted. Just as taking out a butter lamp in darkness dispels the darkness so there is nothing left, the darkness of evil collected in 1,000 lives is quickly dispelled by lamp of recitation. Moreover, you should continue this recitation practice until you see signs that negativities have been purified. In Dharani of exhortation, the signs are said to be dreaming of vomiting bad food, drinking food and vomiting things like yogurt or meal, seeing the sun and moon, traveling in the sky, burning fire, withstanding buffalo and black people, seeing a sangha of full ordained monks and nuns climbing a tree from which milk emerges, an elephant, a bull, a mountain, a lion throne, or a fine house, and hearing the Dharma in your dreams. Based on images, this antidote is to create images of the Buddha having gained faith in him. Based on making offerings, this antidote is to make various types of offerings to the Buddha and his stupas. Based on names, this antidote is to listen to and retain the names of the Buddhas and the great sons of the victors. These are the ones that are explicitly mentioned in the competitive trainings, but there are many others. The power of preventing falls in the future. This is 2 points, the actual power and its benefits. The power of countering falls in the future is to completely restrain yourself from the 10 non-virtues. In the Sun Essence Sutra, it says that thereby the karma of the 3 doors accumulated by means of 3. Now it's 3 o'clock. We're back to Lam Rim Chamo. The 8 types of suffering. Training the mind in the stages of Atisha with the persons of material capacity. Here is explaining the 3rd suffering, as Panchen Lop Sanchukin has stated. The first suffering, the suffering of suffering, to be free from that suffering, it's even with the animals also. And also for a suffering subject to change, this is to be free from that second level of suffering is also exist in the non-Buddhist practitioners, the theistic practitioners. So just the experiencing of a neutral feeling, which is neither happiness and nor suffering, is also to be experiential. That is also considered to be a kind of feeling that is to be obtained. But the very body of our human being, which has been gained by the negative karmas, and the very body to look at is as a suffering. This is what we Buddhists have to practice, the 3rd level of suffering. So if one have the wish to free from the 3rd suffering, it is automatic that the wish to free from the 2nd suffering will generate by itself. Consequently, why? Because even way to reach the level of a deity or a human, even once till you are free from the 3rd suffering, even if you might have free from the first 2 sufferings, but since like a tree it has not been uprooted, it will come again and again. The rough and the normal pleasures, the pleasant feelings that we normally experience from the materials, not just from the facilities of the material, but even from mentally meditating and stabilizing. But even if we aspire, if we wish and feel joy about this kind of pleasant feelings, but if this kind of feeling is really a profound and ultimate happiness, to engage in it for more and more, the happiness has to grow, but that is not the case here. The many things which appear as happiness to us, but in reality it's a nature of suffering. For example, when you buy some new things, first it appears very attractive and new, and it feels we are fulfilled by it, our wishes are fulfilled. But as the time goes on from year to year, but then again you feel a dislike towards it, and you feel very disturbed upon seeing it. So most of those pleasant feelings that arise out of the material things, but are not ultimately happiness. So this is very clear. So that even if you have the higher rebirths of humans and the gods and goddess, even you have the pleasure, pleasant feelings of any kind, they are all not beyond the elimination, not beyond the free of the third sufferings. Because why even were you to reach the level of a deity or a human, you will be mistaken. If you believe this to be pleasure by nature, since you would still not have escaped the suffering of conditionality. Therefore, in reality, you will have no happiness whatsoever. Your life will still come to a bad end, for you will surely fall into a miserable realm again. A human or divine lifetime is like resting on a precipice just before falling into the abyss. Engaging in the bodhisattva deeds, after repeatedly coming to heavy rebirths and experiencing much joy there, you die and fall into the protracted and unbearable suffering of the miserable realms. Chandra Gomin's letter to us, you who reel constantly in cyclic existence, yet who enter a heavy realm mistaking mere calm for happiness, will certainly wander helplessly through hundreds of like and unlike realms. Subsequently, you have to become thoroughly disenchanted with the happy realms as you were with the miserable realms. As Arya Deva's 400 stanza says, high states frighten the wise as much as hell. Rare is the state of existence that does not terrify them. Also, the verse summary of the perfection of wisdom in 8,000 lines says, those whose minds are attached to the cyclic existence will continue to wander there constantly. The letter to a student, the more you conceive all things as happy, the more dense the darkness of your delusion becomes. The more you conceive all beings as suffering, the more the darkness of your delusion lessens. The more you contemplate what is pleasant, the more the flames of attachment spread. The more you contemplate what is unpleasant, the more the flames of attachment abate. From beginningless time, you have been conditioned to believe that the wonders of the cyclic existence are sources of happiness, and you have habitually projected upon them a false image of beauty. But if, as a remedy, you train yourself to meditate on suffering and unpleasantness, you will put an end to those wrong ideas. Chandra Gomin says that if you neglect to meditate on this, ignorance and attachment will increase, and you will... And what is the factor that bound us to the samsara is the karma and ignorance. There might be a kind of a section of karma, but which is not being discussed here. So this is the one which the bound here. But then where we are being reborn as the 5 humans, animals, hungry, ghosts, and hell beings, and 6 kinds of beings. In terms of the type of birth, they are reborn in 4 ways. Form of worm, and where we are born in the samsaric human body, and in our mind the feeling of the self-centered feeling of feeling the I as the most important. Even though the designated I is something which has been projected with dependence on other factors, but in appearance, the I appears to us something like a primary, and the I trying to grasp at the things like the body parts, like this is mine. And when somebody harms your body parts or something, you just think like it is harming you, not your body parts. So therefore, the feeling of the I is very strong. In particular, the non-Buddhist scholars who does not believe in the life of the death and the karmic and the causalities, and also what the Christians believe as the soul, even our body degenerates after passing away, but the soul or the self within, it's being liberated or being guided or led to the heaven. So in reality, the self or the I, as stated by the sutra, the lower Buddhist, the lower school has also stated that the self is something which we can perceive upon, but the self is something which has been projected or depending upon the body parts without projecting or without appearing or visualizing the body parts. there is nonetheless a self which we can visualize in our mind. And in Buddhism, when all the teachings are compounded by the teachings of no selfness, no self, since this is the nature of bondage, freedom from rebirth impelled by the karma and the affliction is liberation. And the desire to obtain that freedom is the mind intent on liberation. So from the clutch of the ignorance and the karma, and to liberate it from it is the real nirvana. So the real liberation is to be liberated or to free oneself from the clutches of the ignorant and the karmic causalities. Being ignorant about the reality nature of the phenomena, so through it the ignorance comes, and through it the karmic and karmic actions are being produced. So the nature of the ignorant itself is something which does not understand the reality natures of the phenomena. So once we understand the reality natures of the phenomena, that is the profound emptiness, so the consciousness or the mind which perceives the opposite way is automatically ceased when one sees the reality nature of the profound emptiness. But in page number 268, moment by moment the compositional activity of the karma and the affliction arises and is destroyed. But this destruction is not liberation. Though things that have been produced do not abide for a second moment, this destruction is not contingent upon conditions for liberation. Secondly, the method for developing the mind intent or liberation, the desire to relieve the suffering of thirst, is based on saying that you do not want to be tormented by thirst. Likewise, the desire to attain liberation, which relieves the suffering of the aggregates appropriate by the karma and the afflictions, is based upon saying that the appropriate aggregates are flawed insofar as they have suffering as their nature. Unless you develop a determination to reject cyclic existence through meditating on its fall, you will not seek relief from the suffering of the appropriate aggregates. The 400 stanzas. How can one who is not disenchanted with this world appreciate peace? Cyclic existence like home is difficult to leave behind. Developing the mind intent or liberation has two parts: reflection on suffering in its origin, reflection from the viewpoint of the 12 Tibetan arisings. This is explained in two parts: reflect on the truth of suffering, the fault of cyclic existence. Reflect on the process of cyclic existence in terms of its origin. Reflection on the truth of suffering, the fault of cyclic existence. Reflecting on the truth of suffering is explained in terms of showing the significance of the Buddha's asserting the truth of suffering as the first of the four truths, the actual meditation on suffering. Showing the significance of the Buddha's asserting the truth of suffering as the first of four truths, the true origin are the causes and the true sufferings are their effects. Why then did the Bhagavan reverse that order? If the origin precedes sufferings, and say, monks, this is a noble truth of suffering, this is a noble truth of origin. In this case, the teacher reverses the sequence of the cause and effect not out of order, error, but because this reversal is vital for practice. Why, if his disciple fail to develop a proper determination to liberate themselves from cyclic existence first, they will suffer the very root of liberation. How then could he lead them to liberation? Thus, in the beginning, the darkness of ignorance ensured his students. They mistook the wonders of cyclic existence, which are in fact suffering, for happiness. As for the 400 stanza says, for example, if somebody is falling ill, if you do not know if you do not understand his falling ill, then you don't know how to take medicines. And if you do not examine the illness, then how can you take the medication? You will feel that you are not ill. But then you go to a hospital with the help of doctor, and if you examine, then you came to know that you have a certain illness. Then if there is a chance, if there is a means to cure that illness, then what are the causes and the origin of that illness? Then once you came to know whether there is a way to avert that origin, that cause, like taking medicines or trying to be taking the healthy medications and so on. And in this way, if you are able to avert, if you are able to stop the causes of that ill, then you will be liberated from that illness. So that is a kind of a state, being liberated from that illness. So the means to gain it is by taking the medication. But in order to get the intention to take the medicines, first it's very important that we have to analyze or examine or to find the causes of the illness. So therefore, it is also stated in the elucidate words, by saying, in fact, this is not happiness but suffering. The Buddha explained many forms of suffering and led these disciples to become disenchanted with cyclic existence and recognize it as suffering. As this is a necessary precondition, the Buddha spoke first about the truth of suffering. A true, genuine wish to attain enlightenment is to have a wish that the affliction emotion within you is something which we can avert and which we can completely eliminate it. So unless you have such a kind of intention, we cannot develop a genuine aspiration for attaining liberation. Page number 270. If teaching the truth of suffering promotes the desire for liberation, even if you have a wish to be free from that illness, but if you do not have the confidence that you will be free from that illness, but once you see that the cause of that illness can be eliminated or stopped, then you will gain the confidence that you will be confident that you will be free from that illness. Before that, you may get an aspiration or intention to be liberated from suffering. If only I could attain a cessation that relieves this suffering, but if you are not identified the cause of suffering, the truth of cessation is here we are speaking about a few stages of cessations, stopping the kind of afflicting from the first stages to the final. And once we have seen that the cessation can be accomplished with the path, then there is a reason why the path to attainment of cessation is being taught at the fourth time. As I have stated before, the introduction of Buddhism the core of the introduction to Buddhism is nothing greater than the introduction of Four Noble Truths. And this is the best way to enter into the introduction of Buddhist. This being the case, the four truths are taught repeatedly throughout the Mahayana and Hinayana. Since the Sukata is included in the four truths, the vital points concerning the process of cyclic existence is cessation. This teaching is crucial for achieving freedom. Since this hypnotic outline of practice is important, it must be taught to students in just this order. Why, unless you reflect on the truth of suffering to the point of actually becoming revolted by cyclic existence, your desire to attain liberation will be mere words, and whatever you do will lead to the origin of further suffering. So this is very helpful. Lama Tsongkhapa is summary himself without much scriptural text. So now we're back to Tibetan Lam Rim. Page number 102. Clearing of misconception about the attitudes of lesser beings. In the scripture, it says that it is necessary to turn the mind away from all the excellences of cyclic existence, which can be a basis for confusion. Some people think it is inappropriate to develop interest in the high status of an excellent body, possessions, and so forth because they are part of cyclic existence. This is 2 points. how a continuous succession of excellent bodies is necessary. With respect to that which is to be striven for, they are both temporary and ultimate goals to strive for. Even those who strive for liberation from the excellences of a body and so forth, associated with cyclic existence, need to temporarily strive for them, since certain goodness is to be gained in the end from a continuous succession of support. Refutation in relation to ultimate high status. Not all that is the high status of an excellent body, excellent positions, and excellent retinue is included in cyclic existence for the culmination of an excellent body. And so forth is the form for the Buddha, the wealth of his field and his retinue. It is with this intention that ornament for the Mahayana Sutra says the first four perfections accomplish the high status of an excellent body, excellent positions, and excellent retinue, and excellent undertakings, and many other scriptures state that they accomplish the form body. This concludes the explanation of training the mind in the stages of path common to lesser beings. The stages of the path common to intermediate beings, training the mind in the stages of path common to intermediate beings has 2 points. Thus having become mindful of death and reflected on the way in which you will fall into the lower realms of the death, you turn your mind away from this world and develop a striving for the happy migrations. Then through the common way of taking refuge and certainty regarding wholesome and unwholesome karma and its effects, you give up negativities, and by putting effort into accomplishing virtue, you will indeed attain the state of happy migrations. However, that is not held to be sufficient here. Rather, once the attitude common to lesser beings have been developed, you need to develop the attitude common to intermediate beings, which contradicts entrance to cyclic existence as a whole, and then based on that, you need to develop the mind of enlightenment and be led to the path of great beings. Hence, it is necessary to train in the attitude common to intermediate beings. Even though you attain the state of a god or a human being in this manner, you will not pass beyond compounding suffering. Therefore, holding to those states as happy by nature is mistaken, since in reality they are devoid of happiness. And in the end, they are bad because they are certain to fall once again into the lower realms. So how to see that the self-grasping emotion is something we can eliminate? Then we have to first contemplate about the nature of the self-grasping, which is by nature a wrong view. Then after contemplating for a long time, when we gather a general meaning of the reality nature of the self, as Lama Tsongkhapa stated in the commentary, the text for Mother Mega, the feeling that everything exists from its intrinsic reality of nature and the Tibetan origination, understanding of Tibetan origination. So when you contemplate upon the idea of Tibetan origination, then gradually the feeling that everything exists from its own or intrinsically will gradually decrease. Explanation of how to develop the mind striving for liberation. The actual training in the path common to intermediate beings, there are 2. And in the grasping, there are 2, depending on the self-grasping and the phenomenon grasping. And it's stated by the Nagarjuna in the Precious Garland that as long as you as a self-grasping, then till you will be reborn in the samsara with the karmic reactions. The subtle refutation from a self, which will normally exist as intrinsic reality appearing to one's mind, but when you analyze or when you contemplate, even from your mouth, you can say that the self is not existing from itself intrinsically, but in your heart, we also always cling to the self as something existing from its own or something self-sustaining without depending upon the phenomena and the body parts. So whether to understand the profound wisdom or not, wisdom of emptiness or not, it depends on whether you are able to see the emptiness, which depends on the body parts, or which is a mere designated upon the body parts. So if you are able to have a conviction about such thing, then you are able to generate a genuine understanding about emptiness. So one needs to contemplate gradually about this, and as our contemplations get deeper, then generally we will get a sense that it is something that we can think about it. Liberation is freedom from bondage. Specifically, there are two things binding one in a cyclic existence, karma and mental afflictions, page number 104. Through the power of these two, the aggregates join. From the point of view of the realms, they do so in the three realms. The desired realm and so forth, when divided by way of migrating beings as the 5 or 6 gods and so forth, in terms of the birthplaces of worm and so on. This is the entity of bondage. Therefore, freedom from this is liberation. The desire to attain the liberation is the mind striving for liberation. The method for generating the mind strive for liberation has 2 points: the transition, the actual methods. The development of the desire to obtain the pacification of the suffering of thirst, for instance, depend on seeing the torment of the thirst as undesirable. So I will stop here. Whatever beneficial merits I have gained from these teachings, may I dedicate it for the long stay of Buddha and Buddha's Dharma, and may all the practitioners of Buddhism live for thousands of years. And this is the mandala offering to thank the Master for the teachings granted, and by accumulating the long effort, the two collections of wisdom and vast as the sky, may I become the chief of conquerors to guide all the feeble and the guided by ignorance. Also, all lives until I reach that point. May Manjushri look after me after I find the Supreme by completing the stages of teaching. By accomplishing, may I get the peace of the conquerors. By skill in the means inspired by strong loving kindness, may the vital points of the path that of precisely I know clear away the mental darkness of beings. May I then offer the conqueror's teaching for a long term. The regions where supreme precious teachings are not spread, or where it is spread but then declined, may I illuminate the treasure of happiness and benefit the mind deeply moved by great compassion. May this treatise on the stages of path to enlightenment well comforted on the wanted state of the conquerors and their children, by bring glory to the minds of those who want to be free, and long preserve the conqueror's achievements. As for all the preferred conditions that support the integration of the path and clear away the conditions that inherit the integration, whether they are humans or not, may they never be separated in all their lifetime. May the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa spread to all parts of the world, and his teachings also spread. And may all the obscurations related to it be all cleared, and may all the conditions be there. All the merits are accomplished by me and all of us. And for the merits accumulated on all the 3 times, past, future and present, may we dedicate it for the long life of Buddha and everyone.